West Coast. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're at. Welcome to our monthly partner webinar. If you can be on camera, please turn your camera on. It's always more fun to be able to see the faces. And if you can't, we understand. So we'll get started in a minute. James already started. So hey, go ahead and put in chat where you're joining us from. I'm in Austin, Texas today. We'll get started just a minute. We'll give people one more minute to get in. All right. Today's going to be a great webinar. We're going to go quick. We're going to go fast and furious because we have a great panel that we want to highlight. So let me. All right. Hey, Jenna, can you see my screen?
I can, yes, you're good to go.
All right. All right. So hey, before we introduce our panel and talk about some best practices and techniques, just a couple reminders for everyone. The initial call is the most important thing. I've listened to a lot of your guys' calls. I've spoken with a lot of your teams, and there's a direct, clear correlation between how effectively those initial calls are handled and the conversion rates. Appointments, agents on those initial calls that are focused on one thing, setting an appointment, and then building relationships are the ones that have the greatest success. We know that the agents that set an initial appointment on that, set an appointment on that initial call, if that appointment takes place within the first 14 days of the call, they are converting 5 times higher than agents that don't do that. So agents, if you're pre-qualifying people, if you're asking them lots of questions, if you're checking to see if the property is available and then calling them back, or see if you can show it and then calling them back, you're converting dramatically less than the agents that are simply setting an appointment and then working everything out afterwards. So I'm not gonna rant or go on any more about that. It is clear, it is decisive. When you accept a warm transfer, how much more likely are you to transact than if it's a cold transfer? Someone put in chat what that percentage is. It'd be good if I can see chat. I can't see chat.
I can read it off. We have 12 times 5, 50. Oh, here we go. Here's the answer.
There you go. It's 2.5 times, but I like the 12 or the 50 better. It's 2.5 times better. So just across the board, it's 2.5 times more likely to convert on a warm transfer. Why is that important? We still see agents that are cherry picking. We still see agents that are judging books by the cover. How do we know? It's really simple. We'll send a lead to someone and they're in a market where the average sales price is 500,000. They get a $200,000 lead or a consumer. And here's the key point. They inquired on a $200,000 property. That doesn't necessarily mean they're a $200,000 buyer. All right. We know because we watch what happens down the road and we see that consumer that inquired about the $200,000 property that bought a $650,000 property. All right. So, excuse me, resist the temptation to judge a book by its cover. You never know who that person is. You never know who they live next to. You never know who they're related to, who they work with. That could become a client of yours. And you never know what they're fully capable of until you meet with them. All right. I'm just going to plant this seed now. At the end, we're going to ask you. We're updating all our stats. We want to know from each team how many transactions you closed in 2025. Excuse me. And if you're psychic, 2025. If not, tell us for 2024 what your production was. How many transactions you guys had closed. We want to know that. We'll tell you how to do that. All right. I want to introduce our panelists. this, and by the way, this is interactive. If you guys have questions, put them in chat, put them in the Q&A, we will get to them. The, so, Jenna, if you want to just highlight, we're gonna bring on Alex, Rafa, and Stephanie from the Rivlin team in Las Vegas. Thank you guys for being here. There's Alex,
Thank you.
and there's Stephanie. And Rafa. All right. All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for letting us put you on the spot and ask some questions. First of all, Alex, why don't you just take a minute, tell everyone, I already said you guys are in Las Vegas, but tell everyone a little bit about your team in case they have any referrals that they are gonna need to send you.
Yeah, so team started here. I was technically licensed in 2016, but we started in 2017. Just organically, our team's grown organically. We actually just implemented our first recruiting campaign here about 3 weeks ago. So 7 appointments this week on the calendar for recruiting new agents. But small and mighty, 10 agents total. We've been, I guess, a charter member of Pro Plus, which has been fantastic. And yeah, as 10 team members, we really have about 4 or 5 producing team members. There's some that are newer or part-time. So the other 6 account for maybe 10 or 12 deals, and the other 4 account for the nearly 100 deals that we did this year.
Cool. Well, you guys do a great job on our platform, which is one of the reasons why we're talking to you. I'll ask Albie this, but Alex, I'll start with you as the team leader. You know, like as the person who's training and holding people accountable on an internet lead, which is where our clients are coming from, right? They're on the internet, they find themselves on Movoto.com, they fill out a lead form, they want to tour a home or something, we connect them to you guys. What's your philosophy? What's the philosophy you instill in your peeps as far as these calls and how to handle them?
Well, it's what you kind of led off with. Set the appointment, get in front of them, because once you humanize yourself, everything else changes. The amount of people that'll work with the first person that they meet is critical. So even if they're not ready to go see a home, they just had an inquiry, try to get to that buyer consultation, even if it's over Zoom. And then really the big thing is nurture.
Let me interrupt you for a second. When you say humanize yourself, I don't want to let that slide by. That's like a really key component to success. We see that in numbers, and really what I think what you're saying, and if you're not, please correct me, is you do that through a face-to-face meeting and building a relationship. Like that's where the humanization comes. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all seen, especially with social media and what have you, what we refer to as that keyboard warrior, right? Somebody that's willing to talk a bunch of smack, even though they're not. So that not to say that our clients do that, but just that whole sentiment of that gap in between you knowing the person is a psychological break to where you don't care. And until that caring sets in, or they see how much you care about them achieving their goals, it doesn't build true rapport and create that psychological alliance, or that law of reciprocity. None of that kicks in, because you could just be in a call center somewhere in a different state, just kind of doing your job, not caring, ready to clock out. They just don't know. So until they know, it's hard to really build that relationship versus, just one cool conversation.
Yeah, so totally agree. Stephanie.
Yes.
You get a text message, there's a live consumer on the phone, you hit accept to take that call. What's your focus? What's your mindset? What are your goals on that call?
My goal is to get the appointment. I mean, that's number one, just like Alex said. I mean, you have to get in front of them. I've actually had a client from you guys that I didn't close until 23 months after I met with her. And it's just her time wasn't right. And I'm like, I'm here for you, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, a year from now, 2 years from now, because most people start looking you know, when they're basically 6 months to a year before they're even ready to purchase. They're just trying to get that information. So definitely getting the appointment, getting in front of them, going over the buyer process and finding out what their true goals are to get into a home.
And so given that that's the goal, which makes sense and we know is the right approach, what's that conversation sound like that on the initial call for you? Like if it's an ideal one, what does an ideal one sound like?
Right. I mean, typically I get on the phone and usually they do come in off of some sort of property. So you just, you know, I see you're interested in this property at 123 Main Street. You know, would you like to see that property, or morning or afternoon is better for you? And a lot of times they'll say, yes, they want to see a property, or sometimes they'll say, I don't even know what that property is. I was just, you know, checking out the internet. I don't remember. I looked at so many, you know, and then I just asked them, well, yeah, great. You know, what's your timeline looking like? You know, what's your plan, your goals, things like that. I just asked them a couple of questions and again, try to get in front of them more than anything. If they're not willing to get in front of us at that moment, then really it's, you know, keeping them, you know, nurturing them, right? Sending them emails, text messages, giving them information, especially people that don't live here in Vegas currently. You know, we offer video tours, everything like that, because a lot of people do transfer here from another state or relocate here from another state. You know, so it's just really just keeping us top of mind for them, right? Because we know they're looking on a million websites. So as long as we're staying in front of them, good chance that we're going to transact with them when they're ready.
Cool. Rafael, how about you? Anything to add? I know you're the third person I'm asking the same question to. So.
Hi. No, I do the same. I go straight for the appointment. I have today, 2 p.m. or tomorrow, 10 a.m. What is best for you, you know? And once they tell me, I was like, is this a location you're looking at? And is there a specific reason you're moving? You know, blah, blah, blah. They're going to tell me. And once that, I was like, okay, we're locked in for tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll see you then, especially if they start asking too many questions, HOA, things like that. I try to just not answer that. And I say, I'll have all those answered to you by the time we meet tomorrow. I have a lot of listings, you know, and things like that. So that way it keeps them more interested in wanting to meet with me instead of them, oh, she answered all the questions. I don't even like that property anyways. You know, I don't need to go.
I love it. And I know for a lot of us, some of those things are counterintuitive. They're counter to how we've been trained, how our minds think. You know, we want to ask lots of questions. We want to answer all the questions. But what you said is so important. I get to listen to lots and lots of calls, and the ones that are handled the way that you just said are the ones that have the best results, hands down. Data is conclusive. You know, it's not a debate. I also like that you do one of the things that we hear great agents do, which is you give them two options versus, I hear this all the time, where agents will say, when would you like to see the property? That'd be like calling your dentist and them saying, well, when would you like to come in? You say, well, I'd like to come in Tuesday afternoon. Sorry, our next availability is in, you know, March. We could see you on the 27th or, you know, the 30th. Which one's better, right? Don't ask them. You want to control your time, control your schedule. Tell them two times that work for you. And if those don't work for them, you'll work with them to find a time that does. But give them two options. Thursday or Friday, which one's better? And great. Thursday, 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock, right? You're giving them times that you know will work for you. Now, will it work for the seller? Is the property available? Is the property still available? We don't know. Doesn't matter. You'll find that out after the call. And when you call them back to confirm the appointment, you'll have the appropriate conversation with them. So great job, Rafael. All right.
And Chris,
yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Real quick in something that Ralph said, just because I'm going to precede a question that some may have, because I've heard this question so many times. Well, when they're asking something, how do we just say, well, I'll tell you that when we're going to, you know, when we get there, like, I want to know now. So the easiest way that I found and that I train on to do that is by asking them a question back and then making the statement that you'll be prepared. So for instance, Chris, if you said, So how much is that HOA on that property and, what does it include? Fantastic question, Chris. What's important to you about an HOA or what are you looking for in an HOA? Now I let you speak, tell me all of that. And I go, fantastic. So when we meet, I'm going to have all that information available to you to make sure it's meeting all of your criteria. And we can review that at that time. Right. So I'm not just putting it off. I'm asking you a question back, hearing you, and then deferring it.
Yeah, and what that does, like in my brain, consciously or subconsciously, it kind of just handles what I just said, right? And then you're telling me the solution and giving me what I want, which I'm gonna get the information when we meet. Cool. All right. I get asked a lot of questions, a lot of what if questions, which are my favorite. So Rafa and Stephanie, I'm gonna ask you some what if questions. But what if they don't qualify? What if they end up being a renter? What if, there's all these what ifs agents ask when we say, hey, just set an appointment. What all those things happen to you too, right? You end up meeting someone occasionally
Absolutely.
that doesn't qualify, or they can't qualify until some conditions get met down the road. What has you still set an appointment with people knowing that some will work and some won't work?
Because again, it's really just getting in front of them. We truly don't know at that moment. I've had people tell me on the phone, oh, my credit score is like, in the 500s. And then I still will go and meet with them, sit down with them and like draw out that roadmap to help them get to their goal, right? Because everybody could fix their credit, if they have to fix income, if they have to get a better job, something like that. But at least it's sitting in front of them and giving those steps to help them out. We could always connect them with the lender that will tell them the best way.
Steph-
What's that? Sorry.
So I was just going to say, give a real life example, Steph. Rick just borrowed our truck again, right? Talk about
Stephanie
that.
got a referral for somebody she never even sold the house to.
Yeah, I just got a referral from somebody I never even sold a house to. I met with her. She really had some unfortunate situations in her life happen and she was not able to qualify at all. But she said to me, Stephanie, you're the only person that actually would sit down with me and help me go through these steps to see if at some point I could qualify. Now, possibly at some point she will qualify, but she would have a lot of work to do at the moment with her just personal issues. But basically a year later after meeting her, she sent me a referral.
Yeah,
And I ended up just closing a deal with him now.
that's awesome. And that's what we say,
Hey,
right? We never know who that person is related to, who they live next to, who they work with, who's going to have a need. And if you prove yourself and build your relationship with that person, you have then created opportunities for those referrals.
Yeah, it definitely is. It is building that, building the relationships. That's the most important thing. We're
That's
in a
what
relationship business and you really have to build that. I mean, I have a lot of clients that didn't go back to their original agent that they bought the home with to sell their home with because that agent never spoke to them again.
Yeah,
They closed the deal and that was it. That was the end of their relationship. So
Yeah.
it's really, building those relationships, you're going to get a lot more business.
absolutely. Rafa, you were going to add something?
I was gonna add that it's all about the relationship, and besides the referrals, maybe they're not ready now, but they're ready in a year or 2 years. I had that happen with my Movoto, Carlos. I had another one that they bought 2 years, 3 years later, they sold and bought again, right? Or, so you will transact with the same people if you stay on them, nurture them, and try to help them and meet where they're at, right? And then go from there.
Yeah. All right. I love it. And that's really what all great agents do with everyone they meet, right? Like this is no different, but it's just as important or maybe even more important with an introduction that wasn't a direct referral, right? This is more of more of a blind date. All right, you've set the appointment, you're meeting face to face with them. Now, what are you doing? What's the conversations like that because you're trying to accomplish two things. Number one, you're trying to build that relationship so that they have the desire to want to work with you. And number two, you're trying to get an agreement signed. So let's talk about that process. What's the goal? What's the mindset? What's the conversations like when you do meet? Whoever wants to take it.
Let's take it. So for me, It really depends. Am I meeting them at a house? Am I meeting them in my office to go over buyer consultation? You know, if it's coming through Movoto and we're meeting at an actual property, you know, the first question I'm going to ask on that phone is, you know, what about this property caught your eye? Because I want to show up with another property, be able to show them, right? So whether they're qualifying or not, we want to show up with some sort of value. So always showing up, that's where asking questions comes in, right? So finding out what about that property caught your attention? Is this the only area that you like? Are there other areas of town you prefer? Just finding out really what their goals are. Are they in a lease? Do they currently own a home? And just going over that buying process. If they're first time home buyers, really going over the steps. And I always joke around, like, I could go through every step with you right now, and I'm going to. You're probably not going to remember everything, but every step of the way, I'm going to continue to remind you of each step, right, of the process. We also have a buyer's guide that I'll bring with me on the buyer presentations to help guide them through it as well.
All right. Love it.
Well,
And
as
that's,
for me,
and that's a physical handout that you're bringing to give them or to go over with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's printed out with their first name on the front page and everything. That it has like our Rivlin Group, LPT Realty. It has all that. And then we actually have a little binding machine. So I put it in a little booklet. So it's got a front cover, back cover, everything. So it looks really professional. It's great.
Cool, cool. Well, as I'm sure Alex and then I'll ask you what's in there because I'm sure a lot of people on here want to know more details.
Sure.
Rafa, for you, again, the initial conversation, what are you doing to get a commitment to build a relationship?
so if we're at a house, obviously now we have to get the BBRA signed, right? Before going in. And I go as a matter of fact, I don't make a big deal about it. You know, this is the process and what it needs to be done in order for us to move forward. And I explain to them. If they push back, I explain, listen, I know that prior to August last year, this didn't have to be done, but now we have to get this done. And I explain it, and I haven't had no problem. If it's a buyer's consultation, normally I go through the whole process. And by the end, they're like, okay, I actually have one right now, you know, that we met at the office not that long ago. And he's going to be able to move. Actually, I need to talk to Jeremiah, but we should be able to start moving here in February for him. So, and I actually think that Stephanie's little listing might be a good one for you. So anyways, that's just a fun fact. And people don't have much pushback when we're showing value, right? We explain everything and I explain to them, you know, this is how we do it. And I do the same thing. I'm like, I know it's a lot of information and you're probably going to forget, but don't worry, you don't have to remember this. I'll remind you of these steps as we go.
Awesome, awesome. Alex, I know you're a big believer in processes and systems. For the tools that you provide your agents with so that they're best prepared. Talk to us about some of those, like including the buyer booklet that they can bring to a buyer. What's in those things?
Yeah, so we leverage. Yeah, we leverage a lot of tools and technology, so it's not stuff that we always create internally. So we did have a buyer's presentation. Now we rely on one of our partners that generates a custom buyer's presentation. That way we can put in all of their parameters of what they're looking for, price points, and it actually generates something a little more custom to them. One of those things about it, it's kind of like when if you were to pull up at one of your service providers, whether it's your dentist or somebody else, and they have the cone in a parking spot that says, welcome, Chris Heller. It just feels a little more special that it's got your name on it as opposed to something generic. So we have that we go out with. As Stephanie mentioned, we have a binding machine. And one of the things we do at the binding machine is, let's say we're going out to tour with somebody and we're bringing them to 4 properties. We have, the cover, the bind, but then we have our cover page, which is just our team logo, right? Just like that. And you open it up and it's got the 12-page view of the property. Now, I don't know, depending on your MLS, what it has, but we do the 12-photo view. And when I show up, right, what I do is I hand them that book And I also hand them a pen with it, you know, preparing. So that way, if they don't have a pen, and one of the things I say is I'll kind of role play it with you, Chris, is I would say, hey, Chris, I brought you a book of all the properties that I'm going to show you today. The first page has a map of every property we're going to in the order that they're going. So if you're following me, but you happen to get lost, you've got the property address, throw it in nav and meet me there.
Perfect.
The second thing, the second thing is every single, and by the way, if you guys don't know, on Google Maps, you can do that. You can map out an entire route and print out the entire route, and you could color each pin drop differently, which is what I
I'm
do.
gonna send an email to Ella
so-
and put you on it because she's our account rep. So
I think I don't know who's
Yeah, go ahead.
talking there.
Yeah.
If we can mute. Okay. So so the second thing, like I said, is the page for each property. And I say to you, you know, Chris, I've got a page for each property. The back is blank. And what I'd like you to do at the back is when you're in the property, if you notice anything in the property that really catches your eye, that you might not notice from the pictures, go ahead and write that down. Because let's say it's a jetted spa tub in the primary suite or something along those lines. After seeing all the properties, you might be thinking, I really like that first property, but was that the one with the jetted spa tub? So write down anything you see, you know, big closets, small closets, anything that would note that you wouldn't necessarily notice from the pictures. That way you've got that. And when we leave the property, if you cannot see yourself living in that property, put a big X across it. So you don't do what I call the Mr. Potato Head of houses, which is, I really wish I could have that kitchen, but with that backyard and that garage and those bedrooms, right? You know, once you've eliminated it, you've eliminated that entire property. And it's a psychological play that I'm doing. It's a little bit of NLP that I'm doing there to get them to cancel it out, because I have seen people that haven't done that and they go back and they go, well, maybe that one would work. I mean, if we, you know, put the walls up where it was a loft, and that's just a loser typically.
Yeah, I love it as the consumer. So if I'm, you know, I put on my consumer hat, I go through this process with you. Things going through my mind are, this guy's got it together. These guys are professional. Wow, they prepared. Wow, I'm important. This is like, it would make me want to work with someone that did that. Great way to differentiate, great way to demonstrate value. And you're doing it in a way that's very functional, right? You're providing just the sort of like the roadmap for them, but it comes across as valuable to that.
It definitely does. I had the experience where I met a client and they were working with an agent prior, and something about that agent and them just didn't click. So the first time I met them, they were internet lead. First time I met them, I came in with our showing, and first thing the husband says to the wife is, wow, the last agent didn't come up with that. And I said to them, probably no other agents here are going to come up with this. I'm just telling you, we do things different, you know, so it is a big deal, because most agents just show up with the MLS sheet for themselves. So they have their own knowledge of a property, but they're not giving anything to the client. So what value is showing at that point?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I know what my brain would say. I'd say, yeah, that's why they were the last agent and why I'm your new agent. I'm gonna switch gears. Follow-up, right? We know gold's in the follow-up, the fortune's in the follow-up. We also know that a lot of agents stop at some point, either after a week, after 2 weeks, whatever the case may be. What's your guys' philosophy on follow-up, and what's your process for that? How do you ensure that it happens?
Somehow I'm getting like mumbled. So I don't know if it was my internet or your internet. I didn't get the question.
All right. Well, I do mumble sometimes, so it might have been me.
No, it was just bad internet
Yeah.
connection.
No, my question is, follow-up, like we know how important it is. Everyone knows that, yet not everyone does it, or does it effectively, or does it long enough, right? People stop. What do you guys do, and what's your philosophy on it? Whoever wants to take it.
So we have a lot of systems that work with us on top of what we already do, you know. So the way I do it, I'll follow, especially the ones that are not warm transfers. Sometimes we have to call them, and you know, you don't know if they prefer texts or, phone calls. If they don't answer, I'll shoot a text, and then we'll do email. And I will do that myself during my stages for 10 days. And then I will pass to, if I have established any type of connection but haven't been able to get them to meet with me, we have an Amy. Alex can explain better as far as the system goes. And I can, if I have any type of relationship with them, I transfer to her and let her know, hey, here's where we are at, because I don't want that to be clogging my
Yeah.
my WDA is what we call, right? So if I haven't been able, and we put them on a campaign, right? We put them on the campaign, so they're constantly getting emails and texts, and Raya is calling, so we have all this stuff. And once they raise their hand, they will come back into our stages and we can reach out again, Those are just for the ones that we basically haven't been able to get in touch with. So they're constantly getting in touch in many different ways as well. AI, emails, texts, and everything like that.
Great. Alex, anything you want to add to as far as follow-up and processes and?
Yeah, so we do. It's funny. I have a graphic for it. Everybody knows the kind of spray lubricant called WD-40. I have a graphic, and I changed it to WD-80, and it says like removes apprehension, increases productivity. It's a little fun. I try to do things that are fun around the office. What WD-80 means for us is working database, and 80 is how many people you should have in your working database. Once you go over a certain number of people on the nurturing side, you'll let things slip through the cracks. You won't notice that they came back to the site and viewed a property 3 times or favorited something, or or just follow up with them on a certain cadence because you should follow up with them because they said they're 6 months out, so you should follow up with them once a month, or they're 3 months out and you should follow up with them weekly, things of that nature. I let everybody know that other than anomalies, you're not working with what I'll consider leads, right? I don't really love the word leads because everybody's a person, but we'll call them a lead until we've actually gotten in touch with them and created that personal element. And then they become, a contact or a prospect. But leads to prospects it's not never. Very rarely, it's the anomaly that it's a lead to a closing. It's typically a lead to a prospect to a nurture, and then nurture equals closings. So that 80 people that you're working with on a regular basis and nurturing is actually where you want to spend the majority of your time. As you start exhausting them, whether they're disqualified, whether they change their mind, whether you put them in escrow and closed with them, or they went into escrow with somebody else and closed with somebody else, as you move those out, that's when you need to really work the leads to refill that WD-80. You're refilling that pipeline. And a lot of people are looking for that instant gratification, but there's so much more that comes out of really working with adding value and nurturing that database.
Got it. And if I'm on the team and I got 80 people that I'm nurturing, then anything over that, does that go into like an ISA team or an automatic campaign that's continuing to follow up?
So yeah, we have active campaigns through Follow Up Boss. We have AI. You get that through things like Ylopo and Structurally. So we have AI that's reaching out on behavioral things. And then we do have an actual physical person that we call our DCM, our Digital Conversion Manager, that is always monitoring our database, that's sending them back to the agents when they notice that they're kind of percolating to the top.
Cool. And what do you call that person again? Digital?
DCM, Digital Conversion Manager. So we're looking at their digital footprint, what they're doing digitally. Again, coming back to a property, favoriting a property, responding to a text that's, from a client that's in a pond, responding to, we happen to use Ylopo, so responding to Raya. And when we see that happening, we make sure that there's an active agent alerted to it.
Got it. All right. This is awesome. And this is great information. It's, there's no there's no surprise why you guys are doing as well as you are. In chat, for those of you that didn't see, Alex put the presentation. I suggest you open it, download it, replicate it for your teams. Thank you for sharing that, Alex. Very generous of you. In the last couple minutes, Stephanie, Rafa, Alex, first of all, thank you. Thank you for sharing, being vulnerable and open and authentic with everyone. For a team that's newer on our platform, for an agent who's joining us, who's on a team, who's new to their team or the platform, if you're gonna give them one piece of advice to be successful with our platform, what would it be?
Get in front of the client.
Get in front of the client. Stephanie, how about you?
Yeah, definitely build that relationship, build the rapport.
Got it. And Rafa?
Say get in front of them and don't give up, you know, because even though that they might not be ready today, they will be ready, because as you heard from all of us here, we have transacted with people that are ready right now and people that weren't ready 23 months, 20 months, you know. So you stay on top of them, get in front of them, build that relationship, and don't give up, because eventually they're going to transact, maybe not with you, but with somebody. So if you're not on top of them, they will find somebody else.
Yeah, it's not, you'd be someone else. All right, we we promise to keep these at 40 minutes. We got one or two more minutes left. Again, thank you guys. We appreciate partnering with you. Thank everyone for being here. We know being on these webinars each month live for you and the agents on your team is way more valuable than watching the recording or hoping that the recording gets watched. So thank you for being here live. We'll make sure that we keep bringing things of value. Jenna, was there anything else you wanted me to do or say in terms of
Announcements. If you didn't fill out what your 2024 production was, the link is in the chat to do that. And then also we have a master class coming up on the 27th of this month. Those usually happen the last week of every month. And so I will drop that link in the chat as well.
Yeah, well, the master class next month is going to be with Gordon Watson. I've known Gordon for like 30 some years, has a huge, highly successful team in Oklahoma City, and also has a coaching business. We'll have some great information for everyone. So we'll see you at our masterclass. Thank you everyone again for being here. Alex, Rafa, Stephanie, you guys rock.
Yeah.
One quick note, Chris, just because I noticed. So I just put that guide together, and again, each one of them is custom. So I made it to John Doe, and I didn't go in and edit it because I did it while we were on the call, and I realized all the justification is off. So if you see that, normally I would have entered down and done stuff to make the PDF look a lot prettier than it does, but just wanted to give you guys a sample.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Appreciate you doing that and letting us know. All right, everybody, have a great rest of the week and productive week.
Great. Thank
Thank
you. Bye.